Okay.
Should I put on this one? Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you again. Thank you again for all your messages. I'd like to tell you a story about the school, the intermediate school, but we didn't have the cafeteria open until from September till November because it wasn't ready. And so you went home at 1 o'clock without lunch. You could have a snack. I don't know how we arranged that, but you could have a snack. November 1st, the superintendent said, you will open the cafeteria. I said, we're not ready yet. I liked it that everybody went home at 1 o'clock, I guess. Yes, he said, you're going to open. So, when the sixth graders, that was my class, came down to eat, of course I had to be with them because I couldn't think of being another place.
Seventh graders. You started with seventh graders.
Oh, thank you, Richard. And
I was one of them.
Yes, and so I went in, and I remember I was talking to one group, and that same group of kids from the special education class were at the next table. So I was leaning over, and the next thing I know is somebody gooses me. I stood up straight, of course. I guess I jumped. And I turned around, and I think his name was Robbie. I don't really remember. He was a member of that class. And he was laughing, and I looked at him, and I said to him, Robbie, that really was inappropriate. You don't touch anyone, certainly not like that. Do you understand? And he nodded his head, yes. Okay, since we had our little talk, I turned around, bent over again, and Robbie goosed me again. At which time I said, you know what? Robbie can go into the principal's office and sit at my desk because he's smarter than I am, and I'll be in that class.
Goose me once, it's you.
Right.
Goose me twice, it's me.
Right. So that was a funny story. What other stories can I tell today? Oakhurst School. Oh, so many stories about Oakhurst School. Oh, the other day we were talking about the playground at Oakhurst School. Well, I don't know if you remember, but in the morning, at recess and at lunchtime, I would come out on Mrs. Schlag's door. She taught 4th grade. Her name first was Ferrara, I think, and then she got married and she was Mrs. Schlag. And she was in that room facing the playground and had a shorter fire escape. Excuse me. So, I used to go out there and stand on that fire escape. Now, the teachers had whistled you in, and everybody lined up according to class, and then I went out. I used to call it Mussolini's balcony. You're too young to remember this or to even know about it, but Mussolini was the dictator of Italy, and he always gave great speeches from balconies. So I used to go out, and everybody got very quiet. You know, before the kids were talking in line and fooling around, as soon as I walked out, everybody stopped. And then I would nod, and we could go in, and I would go into Mrs. Schlag's room and say, what did I do? I didn't say anything, I didn't do anything, I just went out there. So that was always comical, at least to me.
Mrs. Bale.
Also at Oakhurst School, we had Mrs. Bale. Now, she wasn't there when the 6th graders came. She came with the 6th graders. This is at Oakhurst School. And Mrs. Bale was a wonderful teacher. Hard, she was strict. And when she first came, she came upstairs. She had a habit. She would check her mailbox in the office, which at that time was downstairs in the entranceway. And then she would go upstairs, and the only teacher's room was near her room at the back of the school and on the top floor, and there was a little bathroom there. In fact, it was so old that it had a pull chain to flush it. It didn't have a regular toilet flusher. You had to pull a chain for it to flush. So there are two stories about Mrs. Bale and that bathroom. The first story is that, really three stories. The first story is that one day she came upstairs and she had a habit of taking, I had a notice for the teachers every day, and she would go up and go into the bathroom and assume her position and read the notices. Well, on this one day, the first notice was, please don't use the bathrooms in the original wing because the plumbers are working on the system. Something was always going wrong. And she said to herself, well, I missed that one. Another time, she was in the bathroom and she heard somebody, she thought, at the door, and somebody was yelling into her, who? And she says, it's me, it's Betty Bale, I'm in the bathroom, I'll be right out, who? And she didn't know why they didn't pay attention to her. It was the pigeons in the attic, upstairs, making cooing sounds. We had to always be chasing the pigeons out from upstairs, and she thought it was somebody trying to get into the bathroom. Thank you very much. We'll be back in a little while.